I want to talk about types of spirit guides with you. So there's many types of spirit guides. It's a big topic. There's spirit guides that are with you from birth till death. Your guardian angel is a type of a spirit guide, although angels are not beings that ever had a human life. And there are spirit guides that we think of as, helpers that have had incarnations, sometimes multiple. And their job is to help you. So the first thing about types of spirit guides, all of them are available to you all the time, but they do not help you unless you request their help. That's one of the big keys about learning to work with your spirit guides. They're around. Sometimes you can feel them around, but they don't jump in, right? They don't jump in. They don't interfere. They don't spy on you or try to help if help has not been asked for. So very specifically, you need to request help from whatever type of spirit guide it is that you want to be working with. And there's many types, and that's what I'm here to talk about. So let me start with the inner circle. These are guides that you acquire usually between the ages of 0 and like 20 or 25. They serve a very, very specific purpose, help you go through a specific challenge, maybe a drama or a trauma, and they hang out as long as you need them to, and sometimes they get stuck there and they actually go from being a positive guide in your life to being a negative guide in your life. I'm talking about negative guides on my next live, so come see me on Thursday and we'll be talking all about negative guides. It's usually a very popular topic for everybody. So I'm talking about the positive spirit guides, the ones that are here to help you today. And, there's different types. Like I said, there's those that come in and they're in your inner circle and they stay. There are some who are not in your inner circle. They're in what's called an outer circle. They sort of conference up with other spirits and souls to guide when they are called on by other spirit guides. So it kind of works like that. I've had that experience many times where I was working with a client in a private session with spirit guides, and perhaps a guide that had the great information came through, but maybe they didn't speak English. So they would call on another guide who could come in and be able to communicate either in a different language, so that I could understand it, or another symbol or sign or feeling or sensation, however it was that I was receiving the information. That happens infrequently, but it does happen. So your spirit guides are not usually people that you knew that are now past, right? That usually falls in the realm of mediumship. Yes, they're in spirit form, but they're not usually guides, because oftentimes they're not the ones that have the best answer for what it is that you are inquiring about. Working with spirit guides is very specific. The more specific it is, the better quality information that you will get from your guides. And so they're not usually hanging out to have a general conversation with you. It's usually a very short connection, because it's difficult to hold that vibration when you're working with them. But there's different types. Some come in literally for an instant, and that would be, for example, an emergency guide. Somebody who's there in an emergency, in every way that you can imagine it. You step out on the street, you come this close to being hit by a bus, magically you are thrown away off of the street, out of the path of danger and onto the sidewalk, and there's nobody around, right? So that would be an example of an emergency guide that comes in swiftly, very swiftly. You lose your footing, you're falling down the steps, and somehow you didn't get killed or break your neck or have broken bones, and you might have even felt like you were being helped by something underneath you floating you down the steps instead of banging away and being in very bad shape thereafter. That would be an example of an emergency guide. So that isn't somebody who's sticking around. That's somebody who's in and out as a guide for you. And they're called in at that point by your soul, right, who wants to save the incarnation so that they can continue to have the human experience that they arrived here for. Other types of guides are, for example, runner guides. I use runner guides all the time. Runner guides are guides that run ahead of you and clear the way. That's how I use mine all the time. I use them for getting through traffic. My favorite way to use them is for have them run ahead of me and clear a parking space in the front row of the crowded parking lot. I get the front row every time. Every time. People that drive in cars with me, they're like, how do you do that? But no, I'm going right up front. It's a crowded parking lot. There's no space. We should valet park. Nope. There's a spot for me. And I'll pull right up front. Either car will be pulling out or it will be waiting for me. And it's always when I call on my runner guides to take care of that for me. They can also go ahead and smooth the way for other things. Like, for example, if you were going on a job interview, they might smooth the path forward. In other words, traffic will be easier. You'll find a parking place. There won't be a big line to get into the elevator. You'll arrive on time. You know, sometimes they are taking care of things way ahead of you. Doesn't have to be on the same day. It could even be, you know, weeks ahead. So we call them on. They're called runner guides. I got these descriptions from my teacher, Sonia Choquette. Runner guides, helper guides, healer guides, teacher guides. There's also joy guides, very specific, right, for healing, physical, mental, emotional, teaching, being great teachers when you're in a place in your life where you really need to learn something, helpers, like, for example, if you're going to write a book and you really are having some writer's block or some trouble and you might want some spiritual guidance or spirit guidance on how to be able to start the writing or what to say or how to express yourself, you call in your guides. You know, my teacher, Sonia Choquette, wrote every single one of her books with a particular spirit guide. She talks about that in her books, and she talks about it when you study with her. So types of spirit guides also include animal guides. Animal guides, right? There's a lot of shamanic practitioners exclusively work with animal guides. Animal spirit guides. People often want to know what's their animal spirit guide. Animal spirit guides, in my view, are like a medicine. Right? You're looking at the qualities, the characteristics of a particular animal. It also includes, you know, insects and other forms of life that are not the commonalities are not human, and so they are other. But they have an essence about them that can be used. It's not the same as a person that obviously was human and had an experience. It's a different kind of guidance. And I always look at it as a type of medicine, you know, as a way to bring it in, to absorb it, to take it, to ingest it, you know, to breathe it in, and to be able to use it almost like a tonic or a prescription. There's other types. There's light beings that come in, and they're usually channeled, or they're delivering a message. Sometimes they come without request. I've had that experience in the past. And of course, there's negative guides, which I'm going to talk about on Thursday because it's a big topic. So come back on Thursday to hear about negative guides. I want to talk a little bit about angels. Those are usually the first guides that you encounter. You have a guardian angel that arrives when you take your first breath, and the angel is there when you take your last. And angels also can be called upon. Archangel Michael is a very popular one in times of difficulty and distress and overwhelm. And there's a whole cast of, you should call it a cast of characters in the angel realm that have particular energies that they can use to help you. Everything from, you know, bringing over a sense of calm to helping you through a very traumatic situation, for example. They're usually it's usually a first encounter because you're so young in the angelic realm. And then you start calling in specific spirit guides. And then as you get older as an adult, you end up calling in very specific guides. You know, when you are young, very young, it's usually the soul that's calling the guide, because you might not even have an awareness of being able to call in a guide. You know, so the soul is activated still, of course, through the incarnation. Incarnation has a spirit. Spirit's connected to the soul, so the soul can actually call in some appropriate spirit guide to help you through a particular difficult time when you are a child, whatever that might be. As you're an adult, right now you have consciousness, you have experience, and so you tend to literally ask for help. Sometimes you're walking down the street, I wish somebody would help me. Oh, please help me. So when we're praying, we're calling out for help. We're not being very specific about which guide, but we're asking the Great Spirit, for help there. And the more specific your situation or your request, the more specific, usually the better quality information that you'll receive. Spirit guides don't usually hang out and chit-chat generally, right? They've got work to do, and that's their job, is to do the work. And the work is to guide you, inform you, and illuminate for you, maybe even enlighten you by request only. And so they're just waiting for the directive. I need help finding a parking space at the hospital today because I got to get there real quick. Right, so that'd be a very specific request for them to clear the way for you to find a particular parking space. I need help unblocking my writer's block so that I can get the next chapter of this book written, and I need to channel some information on this particular topic so that the person who needs to hear it hears it in the best way possible from me. Right, so that would be a very specific request. And then you can go in and you can work with your spirit guides. First you want to discover them. Well, first of all, if you don't believe it, forget it. Go to another channel because you're in the wrong group. So first of all, you have to believe that there's spirit guides, that they're here to help you. You want to discover them. You want to meet them. You want to connect. You want to create a relationship with them. And then you want to be able to channel them for guidance. And the how to do that is what I do. I teach that in workshops and courses. I currently have a spirit guide mentorship that I just opened up to be able to work with you on being able to do all of that. So you want to at least meet one so that you have help. Let's talk a little bit about the types of spirit guides that people know by name. I mentioned Kuan Yin earlier. I'm wearing earrings that have an image of Kuan Yin etched on them. They're glass earrings. I don't know if you can see that. And I just published a blog about Kuan Yin. And she's a spirit guide, goddess, cultural figure out of Asia who is known for her powers of unconditional love and compassion, and so that's one of the ways that she's called upon and revered. And I lived a long time in Hawaii, where there's a big melange of Asian cultures there in Hawaii, one of the most multicultural places on planet Earth, and it's not unusual to walk into someone's home or into a business and see a representation of Kuan Yin as a sculpture, as an outdoor statue, as an image on the wall in some way, right? Maybe a framed print or something, Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin's energy is very similar to that of out of Catholicism, Western, which is Western culture. Out of Catholicism is to the Virgin Mary, right? Virgin Queen. Queen Mary, sometimes I refer to her the Queen, the Virgin Queen, Queen Mary, the Virgin Mary, Mother Mary. And she also has this unconditional love, compassionate energy as, in addition to the mother, right? The sacrificial mother energy, the being able to go through challenges. And in that particular system of culture and belief, she is also an intercessor between souls. She's the one who basically is at the pearly gates begging to let your soul in, to have you be forgiven for your sins, right? So there's this element of forgiveness and energy that she has too. So they're not dissimilar, Kuan Yin and the Virgin Mary are not dissimilar. And these are rare because these particular, if you look at them as spirit guides or even saints, where they perform miracles, they have a name. Some of them have dates and places. They become part of a practice, or they just become part of someone's spirit guide circle where they call on them for that energy. You do not need to belong to an organized religion in order to work with your spirit guides, not at all. Okay, so that's not even, throw that out the window. That is not a requirement. Okay, it's not even a requirement. That's something different. If you subscribe to a particular religion and the cast of characters that goes along with it. But you have certainly have access to all of them. For example, everyone has access to a type of spirit guide called angels. And there's also these energetic beings that they come to you, and they sometimes they're just sharing wisdom. They're just sharing wisdom. Maybe you didn't even call on them. So I wouldn't say that they are your spirit guides. In that case, I would say that they are spirit guides that come in to share wisdom or knowing or knowledge with you. And I can remember having this happen to me when I was in Hawaii. I didn't know what was going on. I could feel the energy, all around me. And I could see, patterns in my third eye. And I knew, because I had read some encounters of that happening in a particular spot on my island, big island of Hawaii. And I was experiencing something similar, and I just rolled with it. And then I was able to get the guidance and the wisdom from it, and then it was gone. So it's type of spirit guides. And again, you need to request their help, and then they will help.